Hey everyone, we're going to start in about a few minutes. We are just waiting for everyone to join and then we will start. Okay. Hi everyone, are you guys able to hear me? Just drop a quick yes or no in the chat. Am I audible, guys? Okay, so let me share my screen. Can you guys see my iPad screen? Visible? Okay, just allow me a minute. Just a second, guys. Okay, cool. So in the last class, we talked about open closed principle, right? Remember? In the last class, we talked about open, everyone. Okay. Any questions from anyone? I give you guys two classes to refactor. How many of you guys attempted that? Omkar says I did. So what solution you came up with, Omkar? What was the solution that you came up with, Omkar? This repo. Okay. Let me open the link from given by Omkar. Hmm. Uh, okay. What is this? Balenciaga t-shirt. ये क्या है? Take home task. Okay, vehicle insurance, right? Okay, cool. So what was the problematic code? Let's first of all, okay, discount calculator I gave. Okay. Let's see what discount calculation you did. Product type. It extends product type. Okay. Get type, get discount rate. You made a product interface. Okay. String type is equals to null. Get type. Okay. And what was the initial class? Discount calculator. Makes sense. Fair attempt. Vehicle insurance evaluator. Okay. So vehicle made a interface. Truck implements vehicle. Insurance quote. We'll be having an instance of vehicle. Assess damage. Okay, what was the method there? Hmm. Cool. Fair implementations. Anyone else? We can improve it slightly bit more. We'll come to that when we'll talk about a few design patterns, Omkar. I would recommend you to bring it back again at that point of time. But yeah, fair attempt. Looks like a bunch of fair attempts. What about rest of the people? Anyone else? Nobody? तुम लोग बस पढ़े जा रहे हो आगे का और पीछे का क्या कर रहे हो? हैं? तुम लोग को बस क्लासेस चाहिए हैं? बस क्लास करा दो और वीडियो लेक्चर अपलोड कर दो, है ना? पढ़ेंगे क्यों हम? होमवर्क क्या होता है? हैं? होमवर्क तो कभी कभी करे, कौन करता है होमवर्क है? स्कूल के अच्छे करते हैं होमवर्क। हम क्यों करेंगे होमवर्क? Guys, what about rest of the people? How many of you guys have done the homework? Did pull request? Okay, let me check your pull request. Okay, Gyanendra. I'm in that case, I'm asking about the rest of the people. I would recommend you to please watch the previous two classes as soon as possible. Hmm. Discount calculator. Mm-hmm. Okay. 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 So you have made them I would say depend on a concrete class, and you have used inheritance here, right? Inheritance is your approach. Is that correct, Rohit? Okay. So I would say your approach is going to be something that we are going to look forward today, and we'll try to talk about what can be some of the problematic scenarios with your approach. We'll talk about why inheritance is not the best way to go forward mostly. Similar learning will be there for Omkar as well, but at least a fair attempt. I highly appreciate that. Okay, because your solution definitely follows OCP, and OCP was the agenda, if not in the best possible way, but OCP looks like getting handled. So I'm still fine with it. At least a fair attempt. Very good. Rest of the people. Okay. So we are going to talk about a very interesting case here. Okay. Let's start talking about it. 1 second. Okay. How many of you guys remember abstract classes? How many of you guys remember what are abstract classes? Guys, how many of you guys remember abstract class? They have only abstract methods. Okay. They have only abstract methods. What about rest of the people? एब्स्ट्रैक्ट क्लासेस तो C++ में भी होते हैं. It can also have a concrete method. Makes sense. Very good, Rohit. Can be both abstract and non-abstract method and property. Okay. Okay. So first of all, let's try to understand things between abstract classes and interfaces. What are them? How they differentiate from each other? And then we are going to take a use case today. Make sense, everyone? One second. Just allow me a moment. Let me connect the right. This one. Okay. Okay. How many of you guys understand interfaces? Interfaces should be something that you guys must be already aware about. Can anyone define what are interfaces? All methods are abstract methods. Okay. It is a contract. Okay. Okay. Great. Anyone else? Guys, what is interfaces? In the last 1 or 2 classes, you have been seeing me writing a bunch of interfaces, right? And you guys just nod your head. What is an interface? Huh? 100% traction with contract, which we use for decoupling the BL. What is BL? Business logic. Okay. Blueprint. Interface is contract that you make to a class. Okay. Sahib, what about you? What do you think is an interface? Okay. Let's try to build some understanding between abstract classes and interfaces. Okay. Gyanendra says interface is like a skeleton. Okay. Okay. It has only method that cannot be modified but used. Wrong, I guess. It doesn't have method skeleton, right? Sorry, method, I would say implementation. Okay, cool. Let's talk about it. Okay. So before we move forward and try to understand the next solid principle, I would like to spend some time in order to understand two very important things in object-oriented programming. In some way or other, these functionalities are available in most of the languages. And if I talk with respect to Java, Java supports both of them. I'm talking about abstract class and interfaces. Abstract classes and interfaces. Okay. Now let's talk one by one. Okay. What is an abstract class? What is an abstract class? Okay. The most crucial point that you have to always keep in mind about abstract class is that we cannot instantiate an abstract class. That means you won't be able to create an object of this abstract class. This is not like a normal class that you create, that once you create that class, it acts as a blueprint and you are able to instantiate an object out of it. No, it's not that. Right? Instead, abstract class are special type of classes which cannot be instantiated. That means we can't initialize an object out of it. We can't initialize an object out of it. Okay. Cool. Now, let's talk a few more things about abstract class. Now, what is the purpose? What is the basic purpose of an abstract class? Okay. So generally, I'm talking generally, it is used as a base class. It is used as a base class for other classes, right? To provide common definition. To provide common definition that multiple derived classes can share. Okay. So because you cannot instantiate an object out of an abstract class, what will happen is that if you create an abstract class, right, this abstract class can actually define some methods that might be common to the child classes, right? So these common methods can be accessible by the child classes, right? So if you want to have some common implementation altogether, if all of them share some kind of a common implementation, then one way to achieve this is using abstract classes, right? Okay. Now, abstract classes support two type of methods. Okay. They generally support two type of methods. What are the two type of methods? The first method is an abstract method. And second method is a non-abstract method. Now, what is an abstract method and what is a non-abstract method, right? Non-abstract is also called as concrete method. So abstract methods are those methods which do not have an implementation. These are those methods which do not have an implementation. These have implementation, right? These methods do have implementation altogether, right? So abstract methods are those methods which will be only be having signature. Only signature, right? That means the return type, name of the method, and some arguments, parameters. In non-abstract methods, you also have the logic of the method, right? Fun fact, any class that actually inherits from this abstract class can override this abstract method also and the non-abstract method also. Both of the methods can be overridden, right? Both of the methods can be actually overridden, right? But because abstract method doesn't have the implementation, so this is going to be kind of like mandatory to override. So let me actually show you with a very small example. Okay, we'll just take a very basic example. So let me open IntelliJ in front of you. Let's wait for it to open. Okay, cool. So close. I'll add a new folder or a new package. Lesson 3, abstract classes and interfaces. Okay, cool. And then inside this, I'm going to create one new package, abstract class demo, right? Or I guess we should make it like abstract class demo. Okay. And inside abstract class demo, let's create a new Java class, right? So let's try to do one thing. Let's try to create a brand new, I would say, abstract class, which will be having some methods that are going to be, I would say, abstract. Some methods are going to be non-abstract. Okay, I'm just going to take a very simple example. Okay, so let's think about it. Let's say we are going to have a product class. Okay, let's have a product class. Okay, now how do you define a class abstract? You say public abstract class product. This is how you can define an abstract class. Now, the moment you do that, and let's say you create a new main class, here, if you will try to create an object of this abstract class, product P is equals to new product. The moment you do that, can you see there is an error coming up? What's the error? Product is abstract. That's why it cannot be instantiated. So it's going to give you a compile time issue, right? This is very crucial. This is very crucial, and you have to keep this thing in mind, right? So here, what's happening? You won't be able to actually instantiate an actual object out of this class. Is this point making sense to everyone? Guys, is this making sense, everyone? Okay, cool. Now, let's come back to our product class. Now, can you try to think about some methods that might be, let's say, common among some products, and some method that maybe each product has to implement themselves? Anyone? Price. What do you think? Price should be what? Ganendra? Weight. वेट क्यों रखेंगे हम प्रोडक्ट का प्रॉपर्टी मतलब ठीक है गेट प्राइस मतलब क्या होगा एब्स्ट्रैक्ट होगा नॉन एब्स्ट्रैक्ट होगा क्या रखें चलो देखते हैं ठीक है now let's say that inside this product class what I'm going to keep is I'm going to keep a few abstract methods. How do you define an abstract method? So let's say every product will be having an abstract method, and let's say we'll make it as public abstract I would say int, or let's say double calculate discount, something like this. Okay, this is, let's say, an abstract method. So an abstract method, how do you define it? You say use the public abstract, or let's say whatever modifier you have, you use the abstract keyword. Okay, and then let's say you have a concrete method. Concrete method. How do you have a concrete method? Let's say display function, public void display, right? Or let's say public void, let's say terms and condition. Let's say terms and condition, right? Every product will be having, let's say, some common terms and condition, right? So let's say system dot out dot println some terms. Okay, this is cool. And now let's go back to main. Let's comment it out. Now let's create a new class. Let's say MacBook. This class is going to extend because abstract class is a class, right? So you're going to extend that abstract class product. The moment you extended the abstract class, can you see it throws an error? What does it say? It says that class MacBook must be either declared abstract or it should implement the abstract method calculate discount. So what it is, it says that either you make this class also abstract or you have to implement the abstract methods of the parent class. So what was the abstract method? Calculate discount, right? Calculate discount. And in fact, let's say you can even override public void let's bring it and let's see if we are able to do that. Terms and condition. Terms of MacBook. Okay, terms of MacBook. Now let's see. What we can actually do is we can actually instantiate a brand new class, right? So let's say we create a new product P, which is a new MacBook. Okay. See, now you can instantiate a new MacBook, right? It's pretty easy to instantiate a new MacBook altogether, right? And you are able to allocate this MacBook to a product P, right? Because P is the parent class. So I guess this should be pretty much simple. And now let's say if I call system.out.println P dot, let's say, let's do something like this. If I do P dot, let's say terms and condition, let's see what happens. Okay. Terms and condition. Okay. Let's see what happens here. It says it cannot resolve the symbol terms and condition, right? Now let's do one thing. Let's make this also a MacBook, right? Okay, no, one second. I don't think that's an issue here. One second. I'm missing something. We have the MacBook, right? Calculate discount. One related problem. One second. Why is this not able to resolve terms and condition? Is it a different method? No. We have one override. Just a second. Oh, my bad. Sorry, I missed the main method. ESVM. Okay. Yep. Got it. Cool. So the issue was I was not writing it in the main method. So now let's do it again. So product P is equals to new MacBook. And let's say we do P dot terms and condition. Okay. Everything looks absolutely great. If I run the code, you can see terms of MacBook. But let's say there is one more class. Let's say one more Java class, Lenovo laptop. Okay. This also extends from product. Okay. And let's say this also overrides the product methods that are abstract, right? Now let's say in the main, if let's say instead of MacBook, I create a Lenovo laptop object. If I run it, now you can see you're getting some terms. So if you want some methods to be shared across multiple set of classes, right? And you want some strict contract to be followed as well, in that case, you can use something like abstract, right? So using abstract class, you can see you are kind of like promoting code reusability as well, right? And you are actually creating some common implementation for your subclasses, right? Apart from the common implementation, you are also trying to enforce some of the particular, I would say, class level implementation, that because how the discount is coming up might be different for most of the classes. So every class has to implement their own calculate discount method altogether, right? This is how abstract classes actually work, right? This is how abstract classes actually work. So we now know the purpose. We know that we cannot instantiate them. Methods can be either abstract or non-abstract, that is concrete. Okay. Any class that has to follow this signature of product has to extend it. So we are relying on inheritance. And if this is Java, then we have to follow single inheritances only, right? Apart from that, the methods inside your abstract class can have any modifier, private, protected, public, anything, right? Depending on whatever is your need, right? And you can see the use case can be when various implementation are going to share the same methods and some common behavior. That's where you can actually use abstract classes. Is this point making sense, guys? That what is abstract class and how does it actually work? Is it making some sense? I want you guys to be clear about abstract classes and everything before we actually move on to the next principle, right? So that's why I'm asking. Any questions? Gyanendra, let's say you want to share some common implementation. Interfaces never have any implementation. You cannot implement anything in an interface. Are you able to get my point? Apart from that, if you go to languages like C++, they don't have interfaces. They rely on abstract classes only for getting the behavior of interfaces, kind of like that. Okay. Okay. Now let's talk about interfaces. Okay. Let's talk about interfaces. Now the second important thing that we want to talk about is interfaces. We now know about abstract classes. Let's talk about interfaces, that what are interfaces and what is the use case. Okay. So interfaces. Interfaces are simple contracts. These are simple contracts. Okay. They do not have implementation. They do not have any implementation altogether. Right. Interfaces generally do not have any kind of an implementation. Right. They define a contract for classes and do not dictate them that how something should be implemented. The implementation is dependent on the classes that are going to implement interface. So you always implement an interface. Implements is the keyword that you use with interfaces, right? Because you can implement multiple interfaces as well, right? You cannot instantiate an interface directly, right? You cannot create an object of an interface. Cannot create object of interface. Okay. You won't be able to create object of an interface, right? Only abstract methods are there. Only abstract methods are there. There are no concrete methods with any kind of an implementation altogether, right? A class can implement multiple interfaces, whereas a class can only extend single abstract class in Java. With respect to Java, different languages might take a different opinion on this. Okay, but I'm talking with respect to Java. Okay. Interfaces do not have any constructors and they do not hold any kind of a state. Okay. What is the use case of an interface? Let's say you are going to have multiple implementations that need to share the same signature, right? But they do not have any common behavior. That's where you want to use interfaces. I'll give you an example. Let's say there is a class, there is a service class. Inside the service class, you have your business logic. You have your business logic. Okay. To get this business logic running, you need to actually interact with some database. Let's say initially you have a MySQL DB, MySQL database. Okay. Now this service class can directly interact with MySQL database as well, but technically it should not. Why? Because at any point of time, if you have to change any MySQL query, we will be hampering this service class, which is having our business logic. So DB interactions, which might change. Let's say we want to change the query, we want to optimize the query. We have to again and again make changes to this service class. That's why we will delegate this task to another class called as repository. This is also called as a repository pattern. What does the repository do? The only thing that repository does is actually fetch the data from the data source, whatever is the data source, MySQL, another type of DB, maybe something on the web, anything. Whatever is the data source, it fetches the data from that data source. So the only responsibility of the repository layer is to fetch the data from the data store. And if service class needs the data, it communicates with the repository and gets the data. What's the benefit here? If the queries are going to change, service class doesn't need to change. The only change will happen in the repository because it's the responsibility of the repository to actually fetch the data, right? So we are following the single responsibility principle. That the only reason, if you, let's say, write the SQL queries also here and the business logic here, then there will be more than one reason to change the service class. Business logic change, then also service class change. Queries are going to get optimized and changed, then also this service class change. So single responsibility principle won't be followed here. But if you delegate the responsibility to the repository, now the only reason to change the repository is to change when you are going to change the data queries. Cool. Now just think about it. Let's say currently you are using MySQL. Inside this business logic, you need some methods like get users, get user by email, right? And a few more methods. Okay. What will happen is service class will be talking to repository. Sometimes it wants just the user, sometimes it wants all the users by email and so on and so forth. Now let's say you want to migrate from MySQL database to, let's say, a MongoDB database. A MongoDB database, right? Due to any reason, doesn't matter what. Now, what will happen? You need to have another Mongo repository. You need to have another repository that will be following MongoDB connection, because this is MySQL repository, MySQL based repository. We'll talk more about repository layers and everything later, right? This is MySQL's repository, right? So in MySQL's repository, the connection string, how connection is going to be set up with the MySQL database, all of that logic is written. And there are queries of MySQL here. Whereas here, there will be Mongo queries. There will be MongoDB queries, right? But just think about it. The service layer needs the method get user. It needs the method get user by email. Does it care about whether we are getting it from MySQL or MongoDB? No. It only cares about the data in a particular format. How you are getting that data, it doesn't care. Now just think about it. If we can have multiple repositories, this service class should depend on what? Does this service class needs to depend on this repositories? No. Because in that case, if a new repository comes, then it will start depending on 3 repositories altogether. That will be bad. That's why a lot of times we say that we should not depend on concrete classes, and instead we should depend on abstractions. Interfaces helps us to implement that. Because in interface, what you can do is you can have a repository interface, iRepository. This repository interface will define a method get user by email, and so on, multiple more methods. And these repositories are going to implement this iRepository interface. Along with that, this service class is not going to be aware about these repositories, and instead, this service class is going to be having a iRepository variable within itself, right? So it's going to depend on iRepository, whatever is the repository repo, right? Now, whatever repository you need, you are going to instantiate on the runtime that, okay, this repo variable is now going to be the MySQL repository and start fetching data from MySQL. If during runtime, some scenario changes, you want the data from Mongo for the similar kind of functions, you're going to then call the MongoDB repository. In that case, what will happen is, now, if these repository logic changes, service layer logic doesn't change. If a new repository gets introduced, then also service layer logic doesn't change, because the new repository also has to actually implement this iRepository method, and service class will be just using these methods, right? It knows that whatever repository comes in the runtime, it will definitely be having these kind of methods. That is where this contract comes into the picture. You did not want any common behavior, right? You didn't want any common behavior, but you wanted strict contract. Using this strict contract only, we were able to depend on iRepository. And now service class can just simply call these methods without caring about who is the repository behind the scenes actually implementing them. This is where interfaces actually comes extremely handy. Are you able to get this point, what I'm trying to say here about interfaces, everyone? Time for questions, guys. So Gyanendra, what you will be able to do is, you will be able to do something like this, right? iRepository repo is equals to new MySQL repository. You'll be able to do something like this, right? Isn't it? Okay. Abstract classes and interfaces hides complex things and show only essential things. Can you explain this with repository service example? Abstract classes and interfaces hide complex things and only show essential things. Rohit, I can show you with one example. So, like I will use the same thing again, but let me show you. So recent projects. Okay. If you carefully see, I have actually implemented what I was talking about here. Okay. Can you see? There is this product service, right? Or let's see this. There's a fixed store proxy product service. Can you see this class, Rohit? Okay, don't whatever I'm teaching doesn't concern anything with Spring Boot. It's a Java concept. Okay. Spring Boot हो या ना हो, जो मैं पढ़ा रहा हूँ वो exist करता है वैसे भी. ठीक है? Just look at the Java concept. Okay. Now you can see this fake store product proxy service class. Can you see? Right. Or let me even show you one more thing. Okay, let's not go with this. Let's say, let's go to controller, category controller. Okay. Now, can you see this is a controller class. I'm not sure if you know about controller or not, but assume that this is some class that does some kind of a network connection related stuff. Just assume that. Okay. You can see it depends. It has a property category service. Okay. It has a property category service. If you go and see what is category service, can you see it's an interface? It's an interface. Okay. Now, category controller doesn't know how this interface methods are implemented. Okay. During the runtime, this category controller is going to get some implementation of category service. And it is going to call that implementation get all categories. If you go to the services, you can see there is a category service interface and there is an implementation of category service. See, it implements category service. And here we have overridden that abstract method. And here we have given the logic. But controller doesn't know about this logic, right? During the runtime, which category service can come? Multiple category services can be there. Which category service comes during the runtime? Category controller doesn't care about that, right? We can write our whole implementation, making sure that we always will be having a get all categories method that will be returning a list of categories to us, and we'll be working on that. How that list of categories is coming, whether that list of categories is coming from a database, whether it is coming from a network call, we don't care about that. Does that point make sense? This is similar to what I was telling about repository and service. Similar thing exists between controller and service. Make sense, Rohit? Now, this class doesn't know how this get all categories is implemented. Can I say that? But if I would have said category service IMPL, this is an object of category service IMPL, then we definitely know about that. Oh, This get all categories is implemented in a very specific way, which is implemented inside category service IMPL. But now, because this is a interface, this interface, like category controller depends on this interface. So category controller doesn't know how this will be implemented in the actual concrete class. Does that point make sense? It's kind of like, think about it like this. Let me give you a better example, real life example. Let's say you uh what situation we can do. Let's say you have you ever went to a drive through McDonald's? Have you guys ever been to a drive through McDonald's? You know what is a drive through? Guys, do you know what is a drive through? Rohit, do you know what is a drive through? Movies में देखा होगा. अच्छा, drive through is a type of a restaurant where you don't have a sitting. You go by a car or whatever vehicle you have, motorbike or anything. They have an open counter. You just place the order on the counter and they give you the order there, and you just go back home. You don't have any sitting on everything. That's a drive through. Okay. कभी कभी movies में कुछ कुछ तो सिखाई देते हैं. Let me show you how a drive through looks like. This is how a drive through looks like. See, you have a bunch of cars coming up, right? And they just give you the money, they give you the product, and you go back home. That's a drive through. See, in America, in like foreign countries, drive through is a very relevant concept. Now in India also, we have a lot of drive through stores as well. Make sense, everyone? Rohit, do you understand what is a drive through now? See, McDonald's drive through. Okay, cool. Now just think about it. You went to a drive through, you gave them money, and you asked that, hey, please give me 2 McFloats. Now, whether they are internally making the McFloat then and there, or they already have the McFloats prepared, or they are asking some other McDonald's store to bring the McFloat. How they are giving you the McFloat, do you know about it? You just go to the counter and ask for the McFloat. Does that point make sense? How internally that McFloats comes up, you don't know about it. Yes or no? So this window is kind of like your interface. You call your interface, give me the McFloat. Now internally the implementation, how it brings you the McFloat, you don't know and you don't care. Can I say that? Does that point make sense, Rohit? Do you now understand how they are actually hiding it from you? So a bunch of people gets confused with the fact that what does hiding means here? मतलब hiding का क्या मतलब है? मैं तो जाके क्लास की इम्प्लीमेंटेशन पढ़ ही सकता हूँ ना. मतलब कई लोगों का जैसे मतलब पुराने कभी कभी बैचेस में ये डाउट होता था, लाइक वी कैन गो एंड रीड द इम्प्लीमेंटेशन. व्हाट डू यू मीन बाय हाइडिंग? राइट. So hiding or abstraction comes in the sense that the class which is actually using this instance, right, while using the method of this instance, it can freely use it. It doesn't care about how it is implemented because it knows that there will be a strict contract that whenever I will call get all categories, it will be a list of generic category DTO altogether. Right? It doesn't care how it generates it. Maybe it's a empty list of generic category DTO. That's okay. Can I say that? Rohit, do you get my point? Like, I want to definitely discuss this with you till the time you are through it or through it and understand it properly. At runtime, which method is called? We don't know. But person can see the implementation of concrete class which are implement. Yes, मतलब हाँ मतलब again my doubt was correct. तुम्हारे दिमाग में ऐसा आ रहा है ना कि यार मतलब हाइडिंग का क्या मतलब है? मैं तो जाके क्लास की इम्प्लीमेंटेशन पढ़ ही तो सकता हूँ. यही यही इशू है ना. हाँ तो ओके सो आई गेस दैट कम्स विद द फैक्ट, क्योंकि कॉलेजेस में जब हमें इंटरफेसेस वगैरह पढ़ाए जाते हैं, या फिर अगर तुम बुक्स वगैरह में इंटरफेसेस देखोगे, तो वहां पे वो लोग मतलब इस चीज को सही तरीके से एड्रेस नहीं करते, राइट? कि मतलब हाइडिंग का यहाँ पे मतलब क्या है, हाइडिंग का यहाँ पे मतलब क्या है? हाइडिंग डेवलपर से हाइडिंग नहीं है। डेवलपर से कुछ हाइड करके कुछ नहीं होगा। डेवलपर तो सब पढ़ ही सकता है ना, उसके पास तो पूरा कोड बेस है। डेवलपर से यहाँ पे कुछ भी हाइड नहीं किया जा रहा है। नथिंग इज गेटिंग हिडन विद रिस्पेक्ट टू द डेवलपर। आर एबल टू गेट माई पॉइंट गाइस? डेवलपर से यहाँ पे कुछ नहीं छुपाया जा रहा है। डेवलपर जो चाहे पढ़ सकता है, हर क्लास की हर इंप्लीमेंटेशन पढ़ सकता है। बात समझ में आ रही है? अच्छा, ये सिमिलर डाउट, लाइक दिस सिमिलर डाउट कम्स टू दोज पीपल एज वेल, लाइक व्हेन वी टॉक अबाउट प्राइवेट मेथड्स, कि यार मतलब दिस विल बी नॉट एक्सेसिबल आउटसाइड, कि यार मतलब ये बाहर का कोई भी आदमी एक्सेस नहीं कर सकता। जैसे कभी कभी मैं तुम्हें बताता हूँ, तो स्कूल में आई हैड पाइथन, ओके? सो सिमिलर oops concepts were there, public private protect, these kind of things, okay? So teacher used to come and say that if you have a private method outside the class, nobody can actually access it, right? Or override that particular property or things like that. Similar question used to come in my mind also, तो मतलब आउटसाइड क्लास क्या है? मैं जाके उसको पब्लिक कर देता हूँ। मैं तो डेवलपर हूँ ना, मैं जाके जाके प्राइवेट हटा के पब्लिक कर दूंगा, है ना? थिंग्स आर हिडन फ्रॉम द आउटसाइड वर्ल्ड। हिडन क्या है? मैं जाके वो फाइल खोल के पढ़ लेता हूँ, ये कौन सी फाइल है, यही तो फाइल है, पढ़ लेता हूँ, मेरे से क्या हिडन है? डेवलपर से कुछ भी हिडन नहीं है। इट्स टॉकिंग विद रिस्पेक्ट टू द ऑब्जेक्ट्स, इट्स टॉकिंग विद रिस्पेक्ट टू द ऑब्जेक्ट्स, दैट द कैटेगरी कंट्रोलर ऑब्जेक्ट, when the category controller object calls this method get all categories, internally that method calls category service dot get all categories. Now this category controller doesn't care how this get all categories is implemented. It doesn't care about that, it doesn't know about that. During runtime, some category service object will come up with its own implementation and call this method, no problem. While compiling, we don't care about it. Is this point making sense, Rohit? Like, am I able to clear some thoughts in your head? What if two service implement category? What if two service implement category? And if I call it in the controller, which service implementation gets there? Okay. So Gyanendra has a valid question, but Gyanendra, there are two explanation to your question. If you're asking this question with respect to Spring Boot, then Spring Boot has its own way to decide. Okay. You can see this here in the product controller. You can see there is a product service interface again, and there are two implementations of the product service product service interface, right? So how Spring Boot decides, you can decide it in many ways. Application context, there are multiple 2-3 ways. So you don't need to understand how Spring Boot actually decides it. I'm just showing you a Spring Boot example because that was handy in my machine. Talking about normal JavaScript, because internally whatever method you use in Spring Boot internally uses the same core Java logic, that during runtime, whatever is the object initiated, see, whatever will be the new object that you will initiate, this object will decide which implementation to be called. Are you able to get this point? So don't think it with respect to Spring Boot. Spring Boot में बहुत सारे और चीजें हो रही होती है, उसके बारे में कभी बात करेंगे, राइट? अभी जावा के रिस्पेक्ट में अगर तुम्हें सोचना है, तो यहाँ पे अगर मैं तुम्हें जावा के रिस्पेक्ट में बोलूं, तो वी विल बी क्रिएटिंग अ आई रिपोजिटरी repo which will be equal to either new MySQL repo or new Mongo repo. Whatever object you created on runtime will be deciding which implementation should actually come into the picture. Make sense? ठीक लग रही है बात गाइस? Instead of interface, we had class. We can't say it's hiding complex things and showing essential things. If instead of interface we had class, we can't say it is hiding complex things and showing essential things. देखो अच्छा, class means you are talking about abstract class, Rohit? Normal class, okay. You can say that in normal class also you are segregating the task here and there, but there is one very core problem with normal Java classes, right? You cannot have multiple inheritance with normal classes. Are you able to get my point? नॉर्मल क्लासेस के साथ मल्टीपल इनहेरिटेंस करना मुश्किल है, इसलिए नॉर्मल क्लासेस के साथ ये चीज लिखने का कोई पॉइंट ही नहीं है, फर्स्ट थिंग. सेकेंड थिंग, जो हम लोग अगला सॉलिड प्रिंसिपल पढ़ेंगे उसमें आई विल बी टेलिंग यू गाइस कि कंक्रीट इनहेरिटेंस कितना प्रॉब्लमेटिक हो सकता है. ओके, देयर इज वेरी सिग्निफिकेंट इशू दैट एग्जिस्ट विद कंक्रीट इनहेरिटेंस. ठीक है, वो क्यों प्रॉब्लमेटिक है, कैसे, उसके ऊपर भी बात कर रहे होंगे. बट जब तुम क्लासेस के रिस्पेक्ट में कह रहे हो कि यार मैं नॉर्मल क्लास बना देता, कि यार मतलब आप ऐसे कर लेते ना, एक MySQL रिपोजिटरी क्लास, मोंगो रिपोजिटरी क्लास. बट द प्रॉब्लम इज ये सर्विस क्लास दोनों पे डिपेंड नहीं कर पाएगी ना. तुम दोनों पे कैसे डिपेंड करोगे? क्या तुम दोनों को एक्सटेंड करोगे, या फिर तुम MySQL का इंस्टेंस भी अपनी क्लास में रखोगे और मोंगो का इंस्टेंस भी अपनी क्लास में रखोगे? उससे प्रॉब्लम क्या होगी? यूज एक ही इंस्टेंस हो रहा होगा, बाकी के इंस्टेंस वेस्ट होंगे मेमोरी में, तुम्हारी क्लास ब्लोट होगी. इररेलेवेंट ऑब्जेक्ट्स का मतलब हायर चांसेस ऑफ मिस्टेक. मान लो मोंगो का ऑब्जेक्ट बनने में टाइम लगता है बट जरूरत ही नहीं थी उस ऑब्जेक्ट को बनाने की, तो परफॉर्मेंस इश्यूज. बात समझ में आ रही है? मोंगो का ऑब्जेक्ट बनने में टाइम क्यों लगेगा? मान लो मोंगो का कनेक्शन सेटअप होने में टाइम लगता है, फॉर एग्जाम्पल. मैं एक हाइपोथेटिकल एग्जाम्पल दे रहा हूँ. बात समझ में आ रही है? तो अगर तुम इसको क्लास बना दोगे, इस MySQL रिपो को क्लास बना दिया, मोंगो रिपो को क्लास बना दिया, सर्विस क्लास इस पर डिपेंड कैसे करेगी? यू कैन नॉट एक्सटेंड टू क्लासेस हेयर, है ना? तुम ऐसा नहीं कर सकते ना, क्लास सर्विस एक्सटेंड्स MySQL कॉमा मोंगो. ये जावा में अलाउड ही नहीं है, जावा में अलाउड ही नहीं है. बात समझ में आ रही है? और बहुत सारी लैंग्वेजेस है जो इस तरह का सिचुएशन अलाउ नहीं करती. डज दैट पॉइंट मेक सेंस, राइट? और ऐसा क्यों नहीं करती? तुम मतलब आई गेस ये सब बेसिक डायमंड प्रॉब्लम और तो तुमने पढ़ी ही होगी. अच्छा चलो, मैं तुमने पढ़ी होगी तो मैं पूछ ही लेता हूँ. यू गाइस टेल मी, व्हाई इन जावा वी कैन नॉट इनहेरिट फ्रॉम टू क्लासेस? हम दो क्लासेस से इनहेरिट क्यों नहीं कर सकते? जावा में हम लोग दो क्लासेस से इनहेरिट क्यों नहीं कर सकते गाइस? लॉजिकली क्या इशू होगा? हैव यू गाइस हर्ड अबाउट द डायमंड प्रॉब्लम? वेरी गुड सुरजीत. यार ये क्वेश्चन जो है ना, ये शो मैं बता रहा हूँ, ये जो क्वेश्चन मैं पूछ रहा हूँ, मतलब तुम अभी तक जो भी डिजाइन प्रिंसिपल वगैरह पढ़ रहे हो ना, अगर तुम फुल टाइम जॉब नहीं करते तब तो वो तो तुम्हारे लिए वैसे ही सेकंड प्रायोरिटी है. चाहे तुम कोई भी जॉब कर रहे हो, SD 1 2 3, इंटर्न, फ्रेशर, जस्ट कॉलेज में आए हो, स्कूल से बाहर निकले हो, ये चीज तो पता ही होनी चाहिए. बताओ, व्हाई इन जावा they don't recommend and they have not implemented multiple inheritance? There is a concept called as multiple inheritance. सुरजीत ने सही जवाब दिया है. मेथड ओवरराइडिंग करने में प्रॉब्लम है, क्या प्रॉब्लम है? कोई इंटरव्यू में पूछेगा तो क्या बताओगे? When we call the methods, so the compiler gets confused. I cannot determine which class method to be called, and even calling which makes sense. वेरी गुड। बाकी लोग, just think about it, no? Let's say there is a method foo here, and there is a method foo here. This is class B, this is class A, and this is class C. And let's say C inherits from both A and B. If I create a new object of C, new C, right? O is equals to new C, and I call O dot foo. Is it going to call the foo of A, or is it going to call the foo of B? Is that correct? गाइस, ये बात समझ में आ रही है कि क्या प्रॉब्लम है यहाँ पे? अरे तुम्हें तो बिल्कुल एकदम शुरू से शुरू करवाना पड़ रहा है। यहाँ पे प्रॉब्लम किस किस को दिख रही है गाइस? इस वजह से दिस इज वन ऑफ द फॉरमोस्ट रीजन व्हाई जावा डजंट बाय डिफॉल्ट सपोर्ट मल्टीपल इनहेरिटेंस। बट नाउ कैन यू गिव मी अ सॉल्यूशन टू दिस प्रॉब्लम? क्या इस प्रॉब्लम का तुम लोग सॉल्यूशन बता सकते हो? मल्टी लेवल इनहेरिटेंस। उज्जवल से इंटरफेस। इंटरफेस क्या करेंगे? मतलब ये चीज तो तुम कर ही नहीं सकते। जावा में तो ये अलाउ ही नहीं किया। जावा में अगर तुम ऐसे लिखोगे ना, सी एक्सटेंड्स ए कॉमा बी, तो ये तो वैसे इशू ही क्रिएट कर, जावा ने बाय डिफॉल्ट इसको सपोर्ट ही नहीं किया। फिर इसको सपोर्ट ना करने का रीजन क्या है? कि यार ये कंफ्यूजन का फैक्टर है ना। ये कंफ्यूजन का फैक्टर है। बात समझ में आ रही है? बट अगर मान लो इसको सपोर्ट करना है, कैसे करेंगे? मुझे ऐसे ही किसी सिचुएशन में जाना है, कैसे जाऊंगा मैं? This will create a compilation issue. First of all, I'm telling you guys, this will create a compilation issue in Java because Java by default doesn't even support it. But let's say I want to go into a situation like this. How can I do this? How will we give the priority? बताओ। स्टैटिक मेथड? तो किसका स्टैटिक मेथड कॉल होगा? ये लो, सॉलिड प्रिंसिपल है। सॉलिड प्रिंसिपल पढ़ना है, डिजाइन पैटर्न पढ़ने हैं। अरे खुद थोड़ा एक्सप्लोर क्या करो। एनीवन एल्स कैसे सॉल्व करेंगे इस इशू को? अगर जावा में ये सिचुएशन लेकर आनी है, कैसे करेंगे? सोचो सोचो। सोच के तुम, मतलब तुम्हारे यू नो ऑल द टूल्स दैट कैन एक्चुअली सॉल्व दिस इशू। हाँ, सी सी प्लस प्लस तो, सी प्लस प्लस की गेम ही अलग है। सी प्लस में बोल रहा हूँ इंटरफेस वगैरह नहीं होते हैं। सी प्लस प्लस की गेम अलग है। ठीक है। ये लैंग्वेज स्पेसिफिक इंप्लीमेंटेशन हो सकती है इस प्रॉब्लम को सॉल्व करने के लिए। जावा में कैसे करेंगे? keep one of them as abstract class and other as an interface. ओमकार, इट्स नॉट लाइक कि मतलब ये दो क्लासेस हैं इसलिए प्रॉब्लम है. मान लो एक और क्लास आ गई डी, उसमें भी फू है, फिर क्या करते? जावा ने इसको सपोर्ट ही नहीं किया. चलो देखते हैं, ठीक है. एक काम करते हैं, चलो इसको देख लेते हैं, वरना तुम्हारे दिमाग में कंफ्यूजन रहेगी हमेशा. इन सब चीज़ों को ना मतलब इम्प्लीमेंट कर लेते हैं, ठीक है. मतलब ये सारी चीज़ें काम आएंगी आगे चल के, ठीक है. चलो एक टेस्ट क्लास बनाते हैं, ठीक है. मतलब प्रॉब्लम क्या है, तुम टेक्स्ट बुक पढ़ लेते हो बट कभी उसको कोड ही करने की कोशिश नहीं करते, कभी उसका यूज केस ही नहीं सोचते. देखो, जैसे एक क्लास है ए, एक क्लास है बी, एक क्लास है सी, ठीक है. इफ आई वांट टू डू सी एक्सटेंड्स ए कॉमा बी, तो ये देख रहे हो क्या इशू है? क्लास कैन नॉट डू मल्टी एक्सटेंड मल्टीपल क्लासेस. क्लासेस मल्टीपल क्लासेस को एक्सटेंड कर ही नहीं सकती. कितने लोगों को दिख रहा है? ठीक है. तो जावा बाय डिफॉल्ट डजंट इवन सपोर्ट इट, कि भाई तुम ये कर ही नहीं सकते. सी प्लस प्लस में तुम ये कर पाओगे, सी प्लस प्लस में तुम ये चीज कर पाओगे. ये कंपाइलेशन इशू नहीं देगा, बट फिर जब उसको रन करोगे तो फिर इशू आने लगेगा. बात समझ में आ रही है? कितने लोग बात समझ में आ रही है? अच्छा. अब एक इंटरेस्टिंग फैक्ट फैक्ट बताऊं, एक इंटरेस्टिंग फैक्ट बताऊं. ओके. सो ऑन योर वन सेकंड, just one guess. Oh, just allow me a moment, guys. Sorry for the interruption. Sorry guys, actually my system space is full, so I'm not able to edit anything. One second. Uh, just a minute, guys. This man, some space now. Okay, cool. 50 MB left. Okay, still just 50 MB left on the machine. Just a second. कितना बचा है? Yeah, 1 GB हो गया. Just a second, guys. I have my whole machine full. कुछ लिखने नहीं दे रहा मुझे. Okay, cool. Now we can come back. Okay. So we talked about different things around abstract classes and interfaces. Okay. And I talked about one more thing, that generally interfaces doesn't have any kind of a concrete implementation. Now I want to show you one interesting thing that came with latest versions of Java. Okay. So okay. So let's come here. So what is the purpose of the default keyword in Java? Okay. Recently, I saw a question which looks like this: interface and interface. And can you see there is a method with some implementation? There is a method with some implementation altogether. So according to the interface definition, only abstract methods are allowed. Why does it allow to compile the above code? What is the default keyword? On the other hand, when I was trying to write the below code, then it says modifier default not allowed here. You can see you were not able to do default class this. So what is this default keyword? So it's a new feature in Java 8, right? So a lot of people on the internet will keep on saying in front of you that interfaces cannot have any implementation and everything altogether. We also talked about it, but there is a slight update which allows interface to provide an implementation. Adding a default method or changing a method from abstract to default does not break compatibility with pre-existing binaries, but may cause an incompatible class change error if a pre-existing binary attempts to invoke the method. Okay. What's this new part? Default method enables new functionality to be added to the interfaces of libraries and ensure binary compatibility with the code. That means if you use a keyword like this, you can definitely have some implementation along with the interfaces as well. So you can see default methods were added to Java 8 primarily to support Lambda expressions, right? So primarily to support, you can see expressions like this, right? So if you see public int apply inverse and you have a operator object, which was an interface altogether, you call operator dot inverse, right? Which is calling what? Minus of operate. And if you call apply inverse, you are able to actually give the implementation like this here. So the designers cleverly, in my view, decided to make Lambda syntax for creating anonymous implementation of an interface. But given Lambdas can only implement a single method, they would be limited to interfaces with a single method, which would be pretty severe restriction. Instead, default methods were added to allow more complex interfaces to be used. If you need some convincing of the claim that default was introduced due to Lambdas, note that the Strawman proposal of Project Lambda by this in 2009 mentions extension methods as a mandatory feature to be supported by Lambdas, right? So you can see overall, anywhere you have an interface, you can definitely implement a default method with some implementations. And you can see this class is implementing this interface and you are overriding it. When you call do some work, see do some work, which you are overriding. This is the abstract method that you are overriding, right? You got this. Otherwise, if you call do some other work, you got this, right? So in fact, even in interfaces, you can have implementations of some particular methods. How many of you guys are able to get this point? Are you guys able to get this point? So you can actually read about it. Why default keyword in Java was introduced. And you will get tons and tons of use cases introduced. Right? Let's see if we have. See. Yes, was asked this, and because this is technically Java 8. You know, when Java 8 came, when I was in school, college. बट अभी जाओ इंटरनेट पे मस्त में इंटरफेसेस पे चिपका देंगे भैया भाभी कि इंटरफेसेस में इम्प्लीमेंटेशन ही नहीं होती है. अर्लियर वर्जन्स में नहीं होती थी, दैट्स करेक्ट, नोबडी इज डिनाइंग दैट. अर्लियर वर्जन में ऐसा नहीं होता था, राइट? बट अब ऐसा होता है. बात समझ में आ रही है? बात समझ में आ रही है गाइस? देखो, पहला रीजन तो डिफॉल्ट को लेकर आने का है, मतलब डिफॉल्ट से कोई भी एग्जिस्टिंग इंटरफेस की फंक्शनैलिटी चेंज नहीं होती. जो कुछ भी जावा 8 से पहले इंटरफेसेस सपोर्ट करते थे, आज भी वो सपोर्ट करते हैं. बात समझ में आ रही है? ये बात समझ में आ रही है? इस डिफॉल्ट कीवर्ड के आने की वजह से अभी तक क्या होता था, हम लोग मल्टीपल एक्सटेंड तो नहीं कर पाते थे, बट मल्टीपल इंप्लीमेंट तो कर सकते थे ना. तो अगर मान लो यहाँ पे इंटरफेस आ जाता, इंटरफेस बी, इंटरफेस ए, तो सी प्लस प्लस जैसी इंप्लीमेंटेशन तुम अब कर सकते हो. पता है, सी प्लस प्लस में तुम जाके देखोगे ना, सिमिलर इंप्लीमेंटेशन होगी. फॉर एग्जाम्पल पब्लिक वॉइड डू सम, ओके, एंड लेट्स से same thing, public void do sum, and this says @override public void do sum here. Okay, now which do sum you are going to call? Which do sum you are going to call? Let's see. PSVM, and now you can see what's happening here. Currently, what do sum you want to implement, you will be implementing yourself. Both of these interfaces gave you a contract that there should be a do sum method. You have overridden the do sum method. Now you can write your own implementation. But if you use the default keyword, then things are going to actually change. Why? Because now with the default keyword, what will happen is, sorry, we don't even need public there. If you do default, now you can have your implementation. Like A, B, and now either you override the do sum, or if you want to specifically call a do sum, you will say b.super.do sum. Let's say you want to specifically call do sum of the B interface, then you will be able to call it like this. Are you able to get this point? If you see diamond problem in C++, right? Multiple inheritance in C++. See, class A has a method A, class B has a method B. Okay, no, yeah, this one. Let's see. So there is a person class, right? There is a faculty class, there is a student class. Faculty inherits from person, student inherits from person. There is a TA who can be a faculty as well as a student, right? Now, if you carefully see, then let's see if they have a, okay, why did I even go to GFG? Okay, let's go here. Okay. So let's say you have a class A with the method foo, class B, which inherits from A, class C inherits from A. They have their own implementation of foo. Class D tries to extend both B and C. And in C++, you can do multiple inheritance, no problem. Now, if you call d.foo, which foo will be called? Which foo will be called? This is the problem, right? So to resolve this diamond problem, you can do one of the following. One is called as virtual inheritance. This exists in C++. That you can use virtual inheritance to ensure that there is only one instance of the common base class A shared among the derived B and C, right? That means the common class A's implementation shall be applied, or something like this you can do. Qualify the function calls. That when you call D inside the object of D, you want to call foo, then you are actually going to call foo which is in the context of B, or foo which is in the context of C. So you manually mention that here. Something like that only we are doing here. Are you able to get this point? बात समझ में आ रही है? गाइस समझ में आ रहा है एब्स्ट्रैक्ट क्लासेस और इंटरफेसेस क्या है, क्यों जरूरी है, क्या रिक्वायरमेंट है, सो ऑन एंड सो फोर्थ? Any questions from anyone? Rohit has a doubt. Let's see. He says that we say this hides an implementation. Hide complex things. I differ with that. Like, what do you mean by saying complex things? What do you mean by saying complex things? Rohit, where did you read this term? ये जो sentence है आपने कहाँ पढ़ा? What do you what's the complex thing you're talking about? Google. अच्छा, क्या लिखूं मैं गूगल पे जो है? गूगल पे मैं क्या लिखूं जो आएगा? क्या सर्च किया आपने? पढ़ते हैं, तभी मेरे ख्याल से आपका डाउट और बेटर क्लियर होगा. चल देखते हैं आप क्या आपने क्या ढूंढा, आपको क्या मिला. रोहित, व्हाट शुड आई सर्च? गिव मी सम टाइम. अच्छा, चलो देखते हैं, हम सर्च करने की कोशिश करते हैं. इंटरफेसेस हाइड कॉम्प्लेक्स इंप्लीमेंटेशन. ठीक है, ऐसा कुछ कह रहे हैं ना हम लोग. चलो देखते हैं क्या है. In Java, interfaces are used to achieve abstraction. An interface is a container that stores the signature of the method, this. Okay, here are some concepts related to hiding implementation detail. One is called as encapsulation. What is encapsulation? A class hides the implementation details of programmed elements while restricting direct access to those elements. What is abstraction? A process of hiding the implementation on details and showing only functionality to the user. Implementation hiding, the idea behind this. So I guess you are confused between encapsulation and abstraction. Am I correct, Rohit? Okay. No. Okay. Okay. See, abstraction is anything which hides implementation. Here also, what did I say for when I was showing you example of Spring Boot? Okay, let me open it again. What did I say? Abstraction is hiding implementation. Okay. I am assuming you were in BTech. In BTech, there is a subject called as data structures. And in that data structure subject, at least most of the universities definitely introduce a word called as abstract data structures. Have you ever heard about this term, abstract data structure? What do you mean by that? What do you mean by abstract? Have you guys ever, like, तुम लोगों ने तो डेटा स्ट्रक्चर की क्लास में बस, ओ डेटा स्ट्रक्चर, वाह डेटा स्ट्रक्चर हमें तो आता है, हमने पढ़ी है यहाँ से कोडिंग, भैया भाभी से कोडिंग पढ़ी है हमने, तो हम तो बता देंगे। कभी सोचा उसके पीछे एब्स्ट्रैक्ट क्यों लिखा हुआ था? Have you ever used C++, STL और Java collection library? रोहित, उसका इंप्लीमेंटेशन हमने नहीं किया, उसका इंप्लीमेंटेशन तुमने नहीं किया, इज नॉट एब्स्ट्रैक्शन। फर्स्ट थिंग, उसका इंप्लीमेंटेशन तुम्हें पता नहीं है, इज एब्स्ट्रैक्शन। दोनों में फर्क समझ में आ रहा है? हिडन नहीं है, हिडन क्या है? आओ आओ देखते हैं। सी प्लस प्लस में स्टैक कैसे इंप्लीमेंट होती है, अगर तुम्हें देखना है, कुछ हिडन नहीं है। स्टैक STL गूगल करो, you go to the official documentation here, CPP reference. I hope this is the, like, मैंने तो बचपन से इसी को official documentation माना है. I am assuming this is the official. ठीक है? And if you want to understand how internally stacks are implemented, you will get it here. Just wait for a moment. मेरा पूरा लैपटॉप ही हैंग हो रहा है, वेट करो। ठीक है। Internally, can you see the default implementation of stack until or unless you change the container is what? Deck. C++ की stack deck से implemented होती है। अब इसमें हिडन क्या है, पता लग गया हमें तो, है ना? पता लग गया ना हमें तो? नहीं तो हिडन क्या है? हमसे कुछ हिडन नहीं है, डेवलपर से कुछ हिडन नहीं है। बात समझ में आ रही है? देयर इज नथिंग दैट इज हिडन फ्रॉम द डेवलपर। मैं जाके पूरी C++ की STL कम करके, सॉरी डीकंपाइल करके उसकी इंप्लीमेंटेशन पढ़ सकता हूँ, राइट? What do you mean by abstraction is not something that you have not implemented. It's like कि when you are using it, you don't care about how it is implemented. देखो तीन चीजें, एक, तुमने इंप्लीमेंट नहीं करा है, दो, तुम्हें पता नहीं है कि कैसे इंप्लीमेंटेड है, तीन, तुम्हें फर्क नहीं पड़ता कि कैसे इंप्लीमेंटेड है। तुम्हें तीनों में फर्क समझ में आ रहा है? एक है कि तुमने इंप्लीमेंट नहीं करा, किसे फर्क पड़ता है तुमने इंप्लीमेंट करा है नहीं करा, तुमने नहीं करा इंप्लीमेंट। दूसरा, तुम्हें पता नहीं है कि वो कैसे इंप्लीमेंटेड है। तीसरा, तुम्हें फर्क नहीं पड़ता कि वो कैसे इंप्लीमेंटेड है। तीनों में डिफरेंस तुम लोगों को समझ में आता है क्या होता है? हमने बैंक का कैशियर मैकेनिज्म कैसे चलता है हमने नहीं बनाया, हमें पता नहीं है कि बैंक का कैशिंग मैकेनिज्म कैसे चलता है, या हमें फर्क नहीं पड़ता कि बैंक का कैशिंग मैकेनिज्म कैसे चलता है। बात समझ में आ रही है? एब्स्ट्रैक्शन इज 80 to 90% द थर्ड थिंग, 10% द सेकेंड थिंग, 0% फर्स्ट थिंग। ऐसा समझो। In abstraction, you don't care about how things are implemented because you know this is the signature, I need to use it, done. When you use a stack, you call stack.push, stat.pop. 90% of you guys never even cared about the fact that how stack is internally implemented in C++, right? You use it because you don't care about it. That's abstraction. The internal details are hidden means that you don't care about it, and until or unless you try to know, it's hidden. Like the use case using a stack data structure is never going to be hindered by the fact that you don't know how it is internally implemented. Stack को use करते टाइम तुम्हें कोई hindrance नहीं आने वाली है कि internally stack कैसे implemented है। बात समझ में आ रही है? तुम use कर सकते हो, और पढ़ना चाहो तो पढ़ लो। हिडन इस सेंस में है बस, जो हिडन वाला सेंस है ना, कि थिंग्स आर हिडन फ्रॉम यू। हिडन फ्रॉम यू इज द फैक्ट कि व्हेन यू हैव टू यूज इट, you have been exposed these methods, push, pop, in place, swap, all of these things. When you use these methods, you don't care how internally is it implemented, and the knowledge of how it is internally implemented is not going to hamper the fact that you can or you cannot use stacks. बात समझ में आ रही है रोहित मेरी? रोहित ये बात समझ में आ रही है एब्स्ट्रैक्शन में? ये चीज क्लियर है ना? मैं जब स्टैक को यूज करना चाहता हूं ना, मैं यूज करूंगा स्टैक, मेरे को फर्क ही नहीं पड़ता कि इंटरनली वो कैसे इंप्लीमेंटेड है. दैट्स एब्स्ट्रैक्ट डेटा और एब्स्ट्रैक्ट स्ट्रक्चर्स, राइट? आ रहे हैं उस पर, आ रहे हैं रोहित, आते हैं उस पर, डिस्कस कर रहे हैं. ठीक है, तो ये तो मतलब है एब्स्ट्रैक्शन का. When you say details are hidden, that means when you're using it, you don't care about what details are hidden and how it is implemented, right? Cool. Now Rohit is asking a question. Can we not achieve abstraction using normal classes? So that's why, Rohit, I gave you this example. Again, coming back, this is my service layer. ये मेरी service layer है, ठीक है? यहां पे business logic लिखा है. This is the business logic written. This business logic needs some data. Where the data is coming from, we do not care. Can I say that? Data comes from MySQL, data comes from Cosmos DB, data comes from MongoDB, data comes from Oracle DB, doesn't matter. Can I say that? We need the data in a certain format. Let's say there is a class form data. Every time we need data in this format. How we care where we store the data, we don't need to know. Are you able to get this point, Rohit? Is the use case clear? Can I say this is the use case of abstraction, that service class doesn't care how do you get the data, it just care about you get the data. Okay, ठीक लग रहा है रोहित? ठीक लग रही है? अच्छा, अब to get the data, you might want to get the data via MySQL, you might want to get the data via MongoDB, you might want to get the data via some third-party API, right? Let's assume for a moment there is no interface or abstract class, nothing like that. There are concrete classes, okay? So let's see how things will look like. So there is a concrete class, MySQL repository. Then there is a concrete class, MongoDB repository. Okay, let's say these are the two. Now you have a class service. How will you implement abstraction such that the service doesn't know which repository is getting used? One way can be you try to extend both of them, that you have access to methods from both of them. That is your, let's say this has a method get user. This also has a method get user. The difference is that this gets the user from MySQL, this gets the user from Mongo. Okay. So let's say if you go via the diamond problem, that is you try to extend both MySQL repository and MongoDB repository in C++, let's assume, because in Java, you cannot do it. In Java, you cannot do multiple inheritance. In C++, if you do, then what will happen is, if you want to call the get user method, you have to tell which repositories get user method you want to access. Are you able to get this point, Rohit? Can I say that? Now, does this violate single responsibility principle? Yes, because why the service needs to know how the data is going to come up. Here, the service is instructing that get me the data from MySQL, get me the data from MongoDB. Service is not abstracted, right? Service has to care about how to get the data. Can I say that, Rohit? Abstraction would have been achieved if service doesn't care about how the data comes up. Here, the service has to care how the data comes up. Can I say that? Yes or no? Yes or no? नहीं समझ में आया? देखो मैं दोबारा बता, हाँ कोई दिक्कत नहीं है, अगर समझ में नहीं आया तो मैं दोबारा पूछना है, बैठे नहीं रहना है कि भाई मतलब खुद से आ जाए, खुद से कुछ नहीं आएगा लाइफ में. आ रही बात समझ में? ठीक है, चलो दोबारा देखते हैं। देखो मैं क्या कह रहा हूं कि दो रिपोजिटरीज हैं हमारे पास, सही लग रहा है ना? दो रिपोजिटरीज हैं, यस और नो? तो देखो अगर दो रिपोजिटरीज हैं, अगर दो रिपोजिटरीज हैं और वी वांट टू अचीव एब्स्ट्रैक्शन, व्हाट डिड आई टेल यू अबाउट एब्स्ट्रैक्शन? एब्स्ट्रैक्शन का मतलब मैंने तुम्हें क्या बताया? एब्स्ट्रैक्शन का मतलब मैंने ये बताया कि हमें फर्क नहीं पड़ता, वी डोंट केयर हाउ थिंग्स आर इंप्लीमेंटेड। कैन आई से दैट? वी डोंट केयर अबाउट इट, यस और नो? ओके, वी डोंट केयर अबाउट इट। Cool. Now, if you see this LinkedIn article, let's assume that class B was MySQL repository, class C was Mongo repository, class D is your service class. Can you see here? You have to mention, you have to actually mention which repository method we have to actually call, right? Can I say that? Sorry, guys. Can I say that? If you go via the multiple inheritance scenario, if you go via multiple inheritance scenario, then you have to do that. Can I say that? That means in that case, service has to care which repository I am going to call. If service has to care which repository I am going to call, then it violates two things. First is abstraction principle, that service should be unaware or it should not care about how the data is coming up. Second thing, single responsibility principle. The only reason to change service should be business logic, but you are changing service now to change how the repository is getting handled as well. Can I say that, Rohit? Can I say that? This would have been achievable in C++. Now come to Java. In Java, तो you can't even do extents of multiple classes. Can I say that? Java में तो तुम कर ही नहीं सकते ना extents. So in Java, what is the available solution in front of you? The available solution in front of you is, one solution is you keep an instance public MySQL repository MS, public Mongo or private, whatever you want to keep, public, private, whatever. I'm not focusing on that. Mongo. You keep instances of MySQL repo and Mongo repo inside your service class. Can I say that? Rohit, this is one more possible solution. What is the issue with this solution? First thing, if a new repository comes up, let's say API repository, then you have to again add a new parameter here. Think about it. If there are 200 ways to fetch the data, there will be 200 class variables that you will be having. First thing. Second thing, if let's say at one point of time, you wanted to just use one repository, the other object repository objects are going to lie idle and will be wasting a lot of resource. Apart from that, you wanted MySQL instance only, but you're getting Mongo instance also. Maybe Mongo instance takes some time to get initialized. Performance hit. Can I say that? Can I say that? मान लो दोनों का ऑब्जेक्ट लगाओगे ना, इसका सर्विस का कंस्ट्रक्टर होगा, सर्विस का कंस्ट्रक्टर होगा, कंस्ट्रक्टर में दोनों पैरामीटर आएंगे, दिस डॉट एम एस इज इक्वल्स टू एम एस, दिस डॉट मोंगो इज इक्वल्स टू मोंगो कर रहे होगे ना, तो यहाँ पे कोई ऑब्जेक्ट पास करेगा ना कंस्ट्रक्टर में, रोहित? कंस्ट्रक्टर में कोई ऑब्जेक्ट पास करेगा ना, जब तुम न्यू सर्विस ऑब्जेक्ट बनाओगे, तो वहां पे किसी को कोई तुम्हें दो ऑब्जेक्ट्स दे रहा होगा ना, माई एसक्यूएल रिपो और मोंगो रिपो के, हाँ है ना? तो इस ऑब्जेक्ट को बनाने में मान लो टाइम लग रहा है, फिर दूसरे ऑब्जेक्ट को बनाने में, और वेस्ट है ये ऑब्जेक्ट, खामखा बना के दे रहे हो तुम, तो इशू दिख रहा है? इशू दिख रहा है? व्हाट इज द सॉल्यूशन? क्या सॉल्यूशन बना सकते थे यार? सॉल्यूशन बना सकते थे, ये वाली चीज सही तो लग रही है, देखो इनहेरिटेंस करना तो खराब ही लग रहा है, कॉम्पोजिशन से ही बात बन जाएगी। एक काम करते हैं, इतनी सारी प्रॉपर्टीज रखने की जगह क्यों ना इन लोगों को एक कॉमन इंटरफेस से रिप्रेजेंट कर दे। इंटरफेस आई रिपोजिटरी, जिसमें तुम्हारा एक गेट यूजर मेथड इंप्लीमेंटेड, मतलब गेट यूजर मेथड इज suggested to be implemented, and these classes will implement your interface, implements your interface, and you are going to depend on iRepository repo. Okay, iRepository repo. Now think about it. If a new repository implementation API repository comes up, service class doesn't need to change. Can I say that? Whatever are the service class methods, you will just call repo.getUser. How this getUser is implemented, we don't care. Right? Service class doesn't care because it doesn't have to change. If the underlying repository is going to change, service doesn't undergo any change. Can I say that, Rohit? अगर underlying repository change होने वाली है तो कभी service में कोई change नहीं आएगा, yes or no? So we don't care about which repository is getting implemented. Anybody who is creating a new service object will be passing me at runtime either the new MySQL repository or new Mongo repository or new API repository, whatever you want. Right? So service class doesn't have to care. It will be given some repository object. Which repository object? We don't care, because all we know is whatever will be the repository object will be giving us a user. That's it. That's abstraction. So you understood why classes directly were not helping us out anyhow. खाली classes का use करके हमारी कोई help नहीं हो रही थी. दिख रहा है? अब clear हुआ doubt? समझ में आ रहा है? तो अगर जैसे तुम फॉर एग्जाम्पल मोस्टली जो मेन लैंग्वेजेस देखोगे ना, what all languages do not support multiple inheritance? Okay, let's see, देखते हैं. जावास्क्रिप्ट तुम्हारी सपोर्ट नहीं करती, पाइथन तुम्हारी सपोर्ट नहीं करती, जावा तुम्हारी सपोर्ट नहीं करती, 3 मेजर लैंग्वेजेस तो तुम्हारी सपोर्ट कर ही नहीं रही. दिख रहा है? देखते हैं. डज रूबी सपोर्ट मल्टीपल इनहेरिटेंस? रूबी के पास तो चलो अच्छा मिक्सेंस होते हैं, डिफॉल्ट सपोर्ट नहीं है, डजंट सपोर्ट मल्टीपल इनहेरिटेंस. डज सी शार्प सपोर्ट मल्टीपल इनहेरिटेंस? सी शार्प डज नॉट सपोर्ट मल्टीपल, कोई सपोर्ट तो कर नहीं रहा सी प्लस प्लस के अलावा. डज सी प्लस प्लस सपोर्ट मल्टीपल इनहेरिटेंस? यस. सी प्लस प्लस का तो अलग ही क्रेजी केस है. मैंने तो आज तक रस्ट का सिंटैक्स देखा भी नहीं है, गूगल ही करूंगा. डज नॉट यूज, इट डज नॉट यूज क्लास रन टाइम. मेरे को रस्ट का कोई नॉलेज नहीं है टू बी वेरी ऑनेस्ट. आई हैव नेवर ट्राइड. कभी किस दिन बैठ के रस्ट पढ़ लूंगा, तब पता लगेगा. ठीक है, तो तुम देख रहे हो मोस्टली लैंग्वेजेस जो तुम्हारी मेन लैंग्वेजेस हैं जिससे तुम्हारा सारा इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर बना हुआ है. पाइथन डज सपोर्ट. आर यू श्योर? डज पाइथन सपोर्ट मल्टीपल इनहेरिटेंस? ओ इट डज सपोर्ट. गूगल पे आधी बातें इधर उधर ही लिखी है. चलो देखते हैं कैसे पाइथन सपोर्ट करती है. ठीक है, बट प्रॉब्लम अभी भी, मतलब अगर तुम मल्टीपल इनहेरिटेंस सपोर्ट कर भी रहे हो तब भी वो वाली प्रॉब्लम तो एग्जिस्ट कर ही रही है जो हमने सी प्लस प्लस के साथ भी बात करी थी, कि सर्विस लेयर देन हैज टू टेल which repositories method we have to call. In that case service layer is now not more no more abstracted from the repository layer. तो वो तो है, बट देखते हैं पाइथन कैसे सपोर्ट कर रहा है, क्या सिंटैक्स है. It's been quite some time since I wrote Python. Oh, so you can do multiple inheritance like this. ठीक है, तो एक काम करते हैं. Give an example of diamond problem in Python. ठीक है, देखते हैं पाइथन डायमंड प्रॉब्लम कैसे सॉल्व करती है, क्या मतलब सिंटैक्टिकली क्या करती है. सो वी हैव अ क्लास ए, क्लास बी, क्लास सी. ओके, लेट्स वेट. क्या हो गया, रुक क्यों गया? आधे टाइम तो ये हॉल्ट पे ही चला जाता है। तो इज माय इंटरनेट डाउन? नाइस इंटरनेट इशू। जस्ट अ सेकंड गाइस, looks like an internet issue. Or looks like a chat GPT issue. उनके सर्वर बैठे रहते हैं वहाँ पे। चलो गूगल कर लेते हैं तब तक। डायमंड प्रॉब्लम इन पाइथन। ठीक है, ये देखो। So the diamond problem occurs when two classes are same ancestors and another class has both the classes as base class. So see, B is inheriting from A, C is inheriting from A, and D is inheriting from B and C both. Can you see? And you initialized the instance of D and you call D dot do nothing. Let's try this code. Let's try this code. Online Python compiler. Okay, let's try this code and see what behavior by default Python possess. Okay, ChatGPT तब तक खेल रहा है. Nice loader. बाकी लोगों को बात समझ में आ रही है ना कि क्या एब्स्ट्रैक्शन की बात हो रही है, इंटरफेसेस क्या हैं, एब्स्ट्रैक्ट क्लासेस क्या हैं, इंटरफेसेस में क्या चीज न्यू इंट्रोड्यूस हो गई है जावा में. ठीक है, पाइथन का एग्जांपल देखते हैं तब तक. चलो ठीक है. Let's run the code. Can you see it's coming from B? If I will change the order, if I will change the order and run it, it calls from C. So जो पहले इनहेरिट हो रहा है उसको प्रेफरेंस दे दिया पाइथन में. दिख रहा है? तो हर लैंग्वेज का अपनी तरीके से इंप्लीमेंटेशन है. दिख रहा है? सो बट मेजरली जो तुम्हारी आई वुड से स्ट्रिक्टली टाइप्ड और जो लैंग्वेजेस हैं जैसे जावा है, सी शार्प है, यहाँ पे तुम्हें मल्टीपल इनहेरिटेंस का सपोर्ट नहीं देखने को मिलेगा. ठीक है. सो और मिलता भी है अगर सपोर्ट, तो तुम देख रहे हो कि देन ऑल्सो एब्स्ट्रैक्शन इज नॉट अचीव. अगर सपोर्ट मिल भी जा रहा है तो भी एब्स्ट्रैक्शन तो अचीव नहीं हो रहा ना. दैट वाज द गोल कि एब्स्ट्रैक्शन अचीव हो, कि एक क्लास दूसरी क्लास पर डिपेंडेंट ना रहे. सर्विस क्लास को कभी भी इस वजह से चेंज ना होना पड़े कि रिपोजिटरी में चेंज आया है. सर्विस क्लास इंडिपेंडेंटली चलती रहे. बात समझ में आ रही है रोहित? अब थोड़ा क्रिस्टल क्लियर हुआ है? अभी भी ब्लर है दिमाग में? कैसा चल रहा है? क्लियर हो गया? एनी मोर क्वेश्चंस फ्रॉम एनीवन? ठीक है. सो टुडे वी आर नॉट एबल टू स्टार्ट विद द नेक्स्ट डिजाइन पैटर्न. हम लोग अगले डिजाइन पैटर्न को स्टार्ट नहीं कर पाए. सॉरी, अगले सॉलिड प्रिंसिपल को स्टार्ट नहीं कर पाए. विल बी स्टार्टिंग दैट इन द नेक्स्ट क्लास. दैट विल बी द लिस्कॉफ सब्स्टिट्यूशन प्रिंसिपल. दैट इज द एल इन द सॉलिड. बट आई बिलीव, आई फेल्ट लाइक कि तुम्हारी एब्स्ट्रैक्ट क्लासेस और इंटरफेसेस को लेकर थोड़ी अंडरस्टैंडिंग बिल्टअप रहनी चाहिए. Right, read more about abstract classes, read more about interfaces. I'm damn sure that I have not discussed everything possible in the world of abstract classes and interfaces. So do give it a shot, do give it some time, try to understand what does the APIs actually are mentioning. Right. In the next class we'll talk about Liskov substitution principle. I'll upload the notes and the lecture once they get processed. Till then, take care guys. Bye bye. Have a really lovely week ahead. I believe we might be meeting now in the new year. If not, then I'll inform you on the group. But before that, I would like to wish all of you guys a very happy new year. The next year should bring a lot of joy and success in your career. Till then, take care guys. Bye bye. Have a lovely week ahead and keep coding.